This could be one of the biggest transfer targets I have ever covered on this channel's existence, and it is a big one today. Wrexham's hunt for a new centre-back has been taken to a whole new level as we're strongly pursuing a deal to sign young Norwegian centre-half Henrik Falchener from Viking FK over in Norway. Now, before we get talking about the ins and outs of Falchener coming to Wrexham, the type of player, the profile, I'll give you sort of a backstory on what has happened so far with the potential signing of Falchener. Now, Wrexham have sent in 2 offers previously to Viking FK below £8 million. A third one was also sent in about 5-6 days ago now, worth around £8.2 million. That has been rejected since, plus add-ons in that deal. So Wrexham are eager to get a new centre-back in, and it looks as if Falchener is the player that is the top of the priority list in terms of bringing a centre-back in. And today we're going to be looking at why Wrexham are so eager to secure his services. So before we get going in today's video, someone did comment the other day about this shirt. Now, this is the away shirt from the 2013-14 season, probably one of the most depressing seasons to date supporting Wrexham, but it's an absolute stunner of a shirt. I think there's a couple on eBay, so if you were that person that was asking, have a look on eBay. I'm sure you'll find one for £50, £60, £70. And as well, if you are looking for the best Wrexham AFC content, make sure to get down there and subscribe. It's completely free to do so. It's free to subscribe, it's free to make an account, and we're on the road to 29,000 subscribers. We are so close. We can see the finishing line. I think we're 80 away, so please consider subscribing. And without further ado, let's get taking a look of a profile on Henrik Falchener. So Falchener is a 23-year-old 6'4" centre-back. Now, I'm sure those two descriptions will absolutely please a lot of Wrexham fans out there about this potential signing. He's young, he's strong, he's athletic, and of course he's 6'4". He's going to be a threat from set pieces going forward and defensively. Now, Falchener's made a really big name for himself over the past 2 seasons or so since getting that move to Viking FK at the top end of the Norwegian table. Now, in the first division, he has had some absolutely incredible performances there. After making 29 appearances in his first season, he won the league, he got in team of the season, and most importantly, what will excite a lot of Wrexham fans out there, he got a place in the Norway squad for the 2026 World Cup just gone, and he even featured in a group stage game. Now, during the World Cup, Falchener of course was part of that Norway squad that did extremely well. I think they got to the quarterfinals in the end, part of the squad that played against France, beat Brazil in the round of 16, so he gained some really vital experience going out there with some of the big players in the world as well. Now, during the World Cup, he did only feature in the one group stage game, which unfortunately was that 4-1 defeat to France. I think it was the final game of the group where both teams knew that they were going through. France fielded a full team, the likes of Ousmane Dembele, Desiree Doué, Kylian Mbappe, whereas Norway rested some of probably their biggest players. Erling Haaland, Martin Odegaard, Sorloth, Sanderberg were all players that were rested on the bench that didn't come on. So there was no surprise it was a drubbing for Norway in that game. But I think, like I said, it was just big experience for Henrik Falchener. It was such a big occasion for him. Of course, 23 years old. He's not really known anything else outside the Norwegian league, which obviously has its limits in terms of quality. So proving himself on the biggest stage against the biggest players and the best players in the world is an absolutely vital bit of experience for potential moves elsewhere in the European leagues. Now, nonetheless, yes, he played one game and I think he came off in the 66th minute, but like I said, it's great experience at a young age. With the format of the Norwegian league as well, the thing about Henrik Falchener is the fact that they played midway through the season in the Norwegian league, and then all of a sudden they're changing from that climate to going to the World Cup and playing these so high demanding games and coming straight back, and he's jumped straight back into the Viking team to push for that league title with Bodo Glimt. So you can't fault his commitment to club and country. 23 years old, yes, he's playing a lot of football, but again, it's only a positive if Wrexham are to go in for him in the final few weeks of the transfer window. Now, what can Henrik Falchener bring to Wrexham? It is a signing that is going to come with a lot of questions, a lot of promise, a lot of excitement, because it's a young defender. Wrexham are tapping into the foreign market, and we know some of the quality that has come out of the Norwegian league before. I think specifically looking at that Bodo Glimt team, players are performing really well in the league and then proving themselves in the European stage, getting £10-20 million moves elsewhere. So I think there is a possibility that Falchener does improve his development and continue his development over at Viking FK. Wrexham bring him in, and Wrexham get an absolute steal signing in. So looking at Falchener as a centre-back, of course, a lot of people are probably thinking, do we need a centre-back? Is that top of our priority list? Some people might think we need another wing-back, another striker, but I would not be turning down Falchener. This is a player that you look at now and you think, this is the perfect time to sign him. We're signing him potentially before the start of the European campaign. If they go on and beat Dynamo Zagreb, which we'll get talking about later in the video, he's going to be playing in the Champions League group stage. Obviously, it was known as the group stage before. It's now that big 32-team league. he is going to have the chance to prove himself in front of hundreds and thousands of scouts across the world, playing in the biggest tournament. So if Wrexham are to go in, I would be doing everything we can to provide a big financial package to club and player to get his services before the Champions League possibly does start for Viking FK. But away from that, looking at the type of player that Falchener is now, he's one that's versatile across the back line, being able to play as that centre-back who potentially steps out of the defence, makes that progressive pass into the midfield from left centre-back, right centre-back. So he can be that ball-playing centre-back. We've not really seen that all too much at his spell at Viking FK, but again, it's not really that type of league where you're going to be playing ball-playing centre-backs, progressive passes in their game. So it is something that he can play, it's something that he can adapt to and evolve to, but we've seen him play predominantly the role that Dom Hyam does play in a Wrexham shirt, that central centre-back, one that, you know, isn't that player that's going to be providing those tricky passes between the lines. He's just going to be there, one that provides good heading of the ball, strength, one that steps out into the defence as well to take the game to the attacker opposed to stepping off. Now, like I just said, despite the versatility that Falchener does have in his game, I could see him coming into the side and possibly providing that strong competition for Dom Hyam. Of course, we've seen Hyam be sort of benched in those pre-season friendlies. We've seen a couple of poor performances, you could say, maybe off the pace a bit. So Phil Parkinson's obviously looking at this situation thinking we can inject youth into that central centre-back role. And if I was to give my honest opinion on this, I could see him being direct competition for Hyam and not being direct competition for the likes of Doyle, Cluth, etc., despite him being able to play there. Now, last season we can see he registered 52.8 passes per 90 minutes. 49% of those passes were long balls, which isn't completely awful, but it does just steer away from the fact that he is that player that's going to be playing those neat passes between the lines out to the channels, you know, potentially making those long balls, those diagonals. So it isn't the type of player that Falchener is, but again, he can be that ball-playing centre-back. Now, I don't have any doubts at all if Phil Parkinson said, look, you're playing right centre-back this week, be that player that can step out of the defence, make those clever balls into the midfield, they can turn play out to the channels. If he was called upon that role, I don't think we'd have any doubts at all. Now, in contrast to that point, now we're talking about him being a central centre-back and what he could add to that back line. Now, if you are going in to play the role of Dom Hyam, you have big boots to fill because he was one of our best players last season. You're going to need to be physically strong and physically adaptable to this league. Now, having said that, he is a physically dominant defender who's clearly going to have such a big aerial presence standing at 6'4". 138 duels won last season, 56 have been won this season, and a win percentage of 75% of those aerial duels that he has faced in the 2026 league, which is absolutely key. It is so key for Wrexham that we get a defender that is going to be physically dominant in this team, because the Championship, there are some big strikers up front, and especially if you're coming from the Norwegian League, a league that has no similar qualities and similar attributes to that of the EFL, especially the Championship. So we're going to need him to be up to scratch to come straight into that team if he is called upon. Now as well, you're looking at that, 6'4", good in the air. He is a set-piece warrior. He can be a big set-piece warrior for Wrexham and a good asset for us going forward. He scored 6 goals in 29 games last season. I think the statistics as well showed that he had the most shots as a centre-back. So could that be a key asset as well for Wrexham potentially going forward? The long throw of Danny Imre, the good set pieces from the likes of Lewis O'Brien, Josh Windass, etc. So we could have a player that, although we think he's going to be key defensively for us, could pop up with a couple of goals at the other end of the pitch. Keeping on the theme of stats for Henrik Falchener now, they tell us a lot about the type of defender that he is and what he could be in this Wrexham setup going into the 26-27 season. Last season he did register 29 tackles, 23 interceptions, 246 clearances, 175 overall duels won, and of course I've just told you about the aerial duels that he has won this season. Now, instead of backing off the opponent, you know, standing side on, whether they go left or right, by sitting back, he is that type of defender that loves to engage with the opposition. He loves to go in for that tackle, and he loves to take the game to the potential opposing striker, attacking midfielder, instead of letting them have the majority of the ball, which of course does come with its pros and cons going over from the Norwegian League, like I said, over to the English Championship, where it's a completely different ball game in terms of quality. The speed, the quality and the standard is so much higher over here than it is in Norway. So if he is going to keep that style of play, we've seen it at times in the Premier League where players have come from a foreign league and have had that erratic side of their game where they do like to step out, especially those international defenders who play the game with such passion and pride. They sometimes can fault their performances, you know, stepping out, potentially getting that red card here and there. So if Falchener is going to adopt that same style of play here, the timing of his decisions need to be absolutely spot on, because like I said, the quality quality, the standard is so much bigger over here in the Championship. So will Falchener come to Wrexham Football Club? It could be a big signing for us. It could be a big step towards potentially pushing for promotion to the Premier League this season. Now, if we're looking at the whole scenario, Viking FK have turned down 3 offers already. Wrexham have sent in 3 offers over the course of the past month to the 23-year-old defender, and with him being contracted until 2029, it's clear, I think, that we need to get Rob and Ryan on the phone to play an agent to get some convincing done, because as it stands, Viking are not budging, and rightly so. Why would you want to lose their best defender before the start of a potential big European campaign, which could have some big benefits, lucrative benefits to them in terms of a financial package, playing against some of the biggest teams in the world? And if Falchener is to play in those games, like I said, they're set to start their European campaign on Tuesday against Dynamo Zagreb, where they do play a home and away fixture. Of course, they're clearly keen to keep their key players for this two-legger that is coming up against Dynamo Zagreb, and it could be a potential big European adventure for them. But if they are to beat Dynamo Zagreb, it would mean, of course, they do qualify for the group stage of the Champions League, which would make the logistics and the whole possibility of this transfer happening a whole lot worse. Now, I think worst case scenario, they get knocked out the 25th of August, I think the second leg is. Wrexham make a late swoop in the final few weeks of the transfer window to get Falchener into the club. So unless that is to be the case, if they do qualify for the group stage, I can't see them letting him go, unless it is a substantial fee, which I'm talking probably double than what we've already offered. So we can only hope that Viking lose that fixture. Now, I think interestingly as well regarding this whole situation, looking at an interview from a couple of years back, I think not a couple of years back, I think it was only a year back, Viking manager Morten Jensen stated that the plan for Falchener was for him to develop as a player, get those couple of years experience at Viking FK, get some European experience under his belt, get his stocks up, and then sell him on. So it is an interesting one, because it looks as if even a year ago they planned for Falchener to be a part of their European adventure, and they wouldn't let him go before they did start this European adventure, which they're playing against Dynamo Zagreb, like I've said multiple times. So it is going to be hard. I think Wrexham, of course, are doing all they can in terms of pushing for the financial package. They've put some big offers on the table for Viking, but in comparison to what they could make for qualifying for the Champions League, I think they'd much rather keep their player this time instead of letting him go for £8, £9, £10 million. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Are you happy with this rumour? Do you think Wrexham should go all in for Henrik Falchener? Of course, we've seen him have a couple of injuries here and there over the past couple of seasons, which isn't what you want to hear from a 23-year-old centre-back, but Wrexham are obviously putting their money where their mouth is. Phil Parkinson, the scouts, have obviously done their homework and really want Falchener into the side, and of course we could reap the rewards of him being a really good defender for us and having potentially a high resale value in the future. So it's one that I would say keep your eye on. Keep your eye on so hard on this, because it could be a big signing for Wrexham. If it is to happen, it will be a club record fee. So yeah, your thoughts are more than welcome in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear them. And until the next one, take care guys, and let's hope for a big win tonight against Cardiff City. Up the Championship Reds.